Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then hi, my name is Erica. I have the front door open so that my cat can look out the door. So I'm really hoping my dogs do not start barking. But if they do, we're just gonna have to go with it. Sorry, I'm fixing my strap. Today, I am going to be talking about the documentary that the Labrant Family recently released. Now, I'm not going to say the word about what it's about, so we are going to have to call it like ending a pregnancy or terminating a pregnancy because YouTube does not like the A word. I might also just refer to it as the A word. I just don't want this to get shadow banned or demonetized, which was very ironic because their documentary was monetized. I got tons of ads on it when I was watching it, so I don't know how they did that, but if I did that, it would surely get shadow banned and demonetized. But anyway, I didn't know the Labrant family was super religious. It kind of shocked me because they don't come across as religious with all their problematic behavior and clickbaiting cancer and like they just do a lot of crappy things and they have a lot of crappy behaviors, but apparently they're very Christian and they're very pro-life, or as they would like to call it, pro-love, which, let me tell you, that's not a thing. You can say you're doing something out of love or that you're pro-love, but that doesn't make it true. Like, I can say I don't judge Josh from the Dad Challenge podcast, but that doesn't make it true. I do judge him a lot of times. I mostly judge him on what he does and says. I don't judge him on the way he looks or things he cannot control. But I'm not going to say I don't judge him, and I'm not going to say, oh, I'm doing this out of love. No, just because I say that doesn't mean I am. And that was one of my big issues with the documentary, is they kept saying, oh, we're doing this out of love, and we don't judge people who do choose to terminate their pregnancies. But it's like, you do judge them, because why else would you be making this whole documentary about the horrors of this medical procedure? Because let me tell you, if you haven't watched that documentary, it has graphic descriptions of the medical procedure. And one thing I've seen a lot of people talking about is that the Labrant family has a lot of children watching their channel. And so it's not appropriate to have very graphic descriptions of such a procedure, because I'm an adult, I'm 24 years old, and it was very graphic even for me. And granted, I watch a lot of true crime and I watch horror movies and stuff like that, but it was extremely graphic and unsettling of a description. And I don't think it's appropriate for children. Maybe that makes me a prude. I don't know. I don't think it does, but you can have your beliefs on that. But I think their documentary was in poor taste, because although they had professionals talking about it, they only had professionals who had their beliefs. And I'm going to be clear here, I have a bias when it comes to this situation too. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm very pro-choice. they're doing construction in my neighborhood, so if you hear that, I'm sorry, but anyway, I'm very pro-life. And editing me here, I have no idea why I said I'm very pro-life. I think I made it clear in this video I'm pro-choice, but for whatever reason I misspoke, so I just wanted to clarify that before anybody got it twisted. I am very pro-choice. But also, as a disabled woman, something that really concerns me is the idea of selective terminations. Like if somebody gets tested and they realize that their child is going to have Down syndrome or spina bifida or another disability that can be tested for prenatally, then I don't think that's a word. I'm gonna get made fun of for that. Oh well. But anyway, they test, a lot of times they'll test the fetuses for things like Down syndrome and spina bifida, and sometimes then the parents will choose to terminate the pregnancy. And now that, to me, is very alarming because I think it has eugenics as an undertone to it, because it's almost like you want to eradicate disability. So that is one concern. Like I cannot be fervently pro-choice because of that concern. But for the most part, I don't think we should be policing what other people do with their bodies. So the reason I went on that whole rant is to be clear that I too have a bias. But also, I'm not claiming to make a documentary and be interviewing professionals and be like, because one of the things the Labrant family said in their documentary that pissed me off was they said, like, a lot of people will talk about this issue, but they have no expertise. So here we are talking to people with expertise. And by doing that, they were making their argument and their documentary seem credible and scientific when...
Yeah. Because I think that if this is what's going to happen, the media...
In fact, it was just as biased as my video, if not more biased, because I at least do have leeway, in my opinion. I have leeway in the way I look at the issue because I don't like the idea of selective terminations, but they only talked to doctors who were also pro-life, or people who were previously pro-choice, but then they realized the horrors of it and they became pro-life. And now I realize that it's a very difficult issue for people. Like, nobody, and I want to make this clear here, people that are pro-choice are not Lena Dunham. We're not saying we wish we had this to give us more credibility and to put more weight into our words. We're simply saying we want people to be able to make choices about their own bodies without the intervention of others. And I believe the Labrant family, although they weren't telling people not to have this procedure done, they were pointing them in the direction and making them feel like if they did that, they were bad people because of the graphic nature of the procedure, which, let's be clear here, I've said let's be clear a lot in this video, don't know why. Sometimes I get a certain phrase in my head and I keep saying it. But, like, nearly every medical procedure is graphic. If you, like, looked at videos of people getting their tonsils removed, that would be graphic. And now, like, I do understand that with life and with procreation, a lot of people have different beliefs, whether it be for religious reasons, moral reasons, whatever reasoning you have. But when something is growing inside of your body, and you are going to be responsible for this life, it should be your choice. Regardless of your gender, regardless of your religion, it should be your choice. And that's my personal belief. And I think it's great that there are resources like that. Like, there was a ministry that had services for people with unexpected pregnancies. I mean, they said women in the document, and they weren't very inclusive or understanding that not everybody with a uterus is a woman, and not everybody who can get pregnant is a woman. Like, I try to make that clear on my channel, that people of all different genders can get pregnant. And yeah, because gender is not based on biological features. It's just not. Gender and sex are two different things, but also sex itself is not binary either. There aren't just two categories. Like, we need to have that conversation, and I realize that the Labrant family seems to be pretty conservative and religious, so they don't seem to care about that. But if you want to create services that help people experience unexpected pregnancies, then you really do need to be inclusive, because not everybody may fit into those very strict categories. But I think it's good that they were sharing a resource and being like, oh, this church can help you. But also, number one, if a person isn't religious, I realize the organization says it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, they'll still help you. But if you're not a religious person, sometimes going to a very religious place can make you feel uncomfortable and like you're being judged, even when they're like, oh, we don't judge. Yes, you do judge. Let's be real here. When I go to church with, especially like a very conservative church with my like visible tattoos and stuff, I get judged. So let's be honest here. Churches do judge, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. But also, I feel like they're almost forcing people to have the child, even if they don't want to. Because even though the church said that we let people make their own choice, they're still leading them in a certain direction and saying, oh, we'll help you with this. And they give them baby clothes, which is a pretty messed up thing. And I know they mean well, but if somebody is considering terminating their pregnancy and you give them baby clothes, that's fucked up. And they said that having a baby doesn't have to interfere with your dreams or your life. That's not necessarily true. As a physically disabled person, and this was something the documentary failed to acknowledge at all, is not everybody's able-bodied. I would need assistance in raising my child. I'm going to be honest here. If I had a child, I would either need a partner to help me with it, or I would need to get in-home childcare services, which a lot of time personal care attendants that help me with showering and stuff, they're not allowed to take care of my child, and it's very fucked up, but that's how it works. So I would need to pay for that. For somebody to be able to change my child's diapers, to pick my child up, to do all of those physical tasks that I cannot do. And that documentary did not go into that. It like talked about people experiencing homelessness and things like that, which, yes, that is a concern for a lot of people, but they didn't cover all of their bases, and I think they did that on purpose, because it would be very hard for them to make an argument that a disabled person, especially if they're single and they're not currently with a partner, especially someone with a mobility impairment that really impacts their life, if they were to have a child and not be in a relationship and not have a lot of money, it would be very difficult. And I'm not saying it cannot be done, because there are plenty of disabled parents out there, but if you are disabled and you have an unexpected pregnancy, that can be very challenging, and it could be life altering in a negative way. And I'm not saying that children are negative and that there's nothing positive about it. I'm not saying that. I feel like there are going to be people that are going to watch this and be like, she thinks disabled people shouldn't have children. No, I think it should be people's choice whether they have children or not. And that was my concern with that documentary, is it really pushed people in one direction that may not be the right direction for every person. And because the Labrant family has a primarily young audience, they're very impressionable, so they might watch that documentary and that may be the first they've heard of this topic, so it will sway them in one way. Another big issue, which I've seen a lot of people talk about too, is they compared this procedure of terminating a pregnancy to the Holocaust. Terminating a pregnancy is not the same as mass genocide. I don't know who needs to hear that. Well, I do know the Labrant family needs to hear that, but I don't know if anybody else needs to hear that. But that's offensive. You really shouldn't compare anything that isn't genocide to genocide, because that's a very serious topic. And I realize that for many people, the termination of pregnancy is also a very serious topic, but two things can be serious at the same time without you comparing them and conflating the two, because by doing that, you are trivializing it. And that's just disgusting, and that documentary was disgusting. It wasn't well done, and for people with as much money and resources as they have, I think they could have done a better job. I know people are probably like, look who's talking, your video quality is garbage. Yes, but I also don't have a ton of money and expendable resources, so I work with what I have. I record these videos on my phone, so yeah. But that's about all I had to say on this topic. If you learned something or if it made you think, please give this a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.